Hello, my name is Lucio and welcome to the show. Recently, I reread the Upanishads with an introduction and translated by Eknath Easwaran, a classic of Indian spirituality. I reviewed this book on my Goodreads a while back, so if you ever want to read a review quicker than it would appear on my YouTube channel, then go to my Goodreads for more information. I will read you the opening of what Wikipedia has to say about the Upanishads. Quote, the Upanishads are late Vedic Sanskrit texts of Hindu mythology which supply the basis of later Hindu philosophy. They are the most recent part of the Vedas, the old scriptures of Hinduism, and deal with meditation, philosophy, consciousness, and ontological knowledge. Earlier parts of the Vedas deal with mantras, benedictions, rituals, ceremonies, and sacrifices. On the afterword for this text, it says under the section Songs of Truth. What is an Upanishad? An Upanishad is an utterance of mystical truth that has come down to us as an attachment to the Vedas, the ancient and extremely sacred hymn collection or Samhitas of the Indo-Aryans. These collections are four in number: Rig, Yajur, I'm gonna butcher these names for future reference, Sama, and Atharva, in order of their age and their predominant interest in gods, ritual, formula, chant, or magic spells. They and their adjuncts of almost equally ancient material from the textual basis to this day of India's major religious system. So, for the person who wrote the afterword, an Upanishad is a set of mystical truths written down. In the introduction on page 25, there is a question that is being asked, quote, is there an observer who remains the same? Is there any thread of continuity, some level of reality higher than waking, in which these states of mind cohere? In the paragraph preceding this quote, it says that the sages of the Upanishads show a unique preoccupation with states of consciousness. They observe dreams and state of dreamless sleep and ask what is known in each. What faculty could be said to be the knower? What exactly is the difference between a dream and waking experience? In Rene Descartes' Meditations on First Philosophy, he sets up an thought experiment in which he asks, is there a separation between dream and waking state, and how does one know exactly that one is in fact dreaming? He also proposed a deceiver god who deceives the person into thinking that he has a self, that he is free, or that he is awake. This also goes back to the famous conundrum of Indian or Eastern philosophy, which is about how a man dreamt himself as a butterfly, but later is confused as to whether he is a man dreaming himself to be a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming himself to be a man. On page 33, it quotes Brihadaranyaka IV 4.5. It says, you are what your deep driving desire is. As your desire is, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. As your deed is, so is your destiny. What this quote refers to relates to Nietzsche and Schopenhauer's idea of the will in philosophy. Nietzsche took Schopenhauer's idea of will of life towards will of power, and he mostly talked about this in his book, in his collection of notes, of which his sister Elizabeth Nietzsche compiled, called Will to Power. Still on the introduction on page 37, it says, when awareness has been consolidated even beyond the mind, little remains except the awareness of I. Concentration is so profound that the mind process has almost come to a standstill. Space is gone, and time so attenuated that it scarcely seems real. This is the taste of Shanti. The peace passeth understanding, and worked at the end of every Upanishad as a reminder of the sublime state. You rest in meditation when again butchering the pronunciation, Tattariya Upanishad calls the body of joy a silent, ethereal, inner realm at the threshold of pure being. When I meditate, I like to recite mantras such as Om Mani Padme Hum or Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti 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 means peace be unto you, and it does make meditation go by a lot quicker, not insinuating that I'm having a hard time with meditation or that I am bored by it. I'm just merely noting that the notions of time and space and man alongside time and space is the fleeting while meditating. I will recite a few Upanishads from the book, which the first one is the Katha Upanishad. Once long ago, Rajas, again, trying my best here. Vajasravasa gave away his possessions to gain religious merit. He had a son named Nachiketa, who, though only a boy, was full of faith in the scriptures. Nachiketa thought, when the offering were made, what merit can one obtain by giving away cows that are too old to give milk? To help his father understand this, Nachiketa said, to whom will you offer me? He asked this again and again. To death I give you, said his father in anger. The son thought, I go first of many who will die, in the midst of many who are dying, on the mission to Yama, king of death. See how it was with those who came before, how it will be with those who are living. Like corn mortals ripen and fall, like corn they come up again. Nachiketa went to Yama's abode, but the king of death was not here. We waited 3 days. When Yama returned, he heard a voice say, when a spiritual guest enters the house, like a bright flame he must be received well, with water to wash his feet. Far from wise are those who are not hospitable to such guests. They will lose their hopes. the religious merit they have acquired, their sons and their cattle. Yama, O spiritual guest, I grant you 3 boons to atone for the 3 inhospitable nights you have spent in my abode, and ask for 3 boons, 1 for each night. O King of Death, as the first of those boons, to grant that my father's anger be appeased, so he may recognize me when I return and receive me with love. Yama, I grant that your father, the sun, Udalaka, and Aruna, with love will love you as in the past. He sees you released from the jaws of death. He will sleep again with a mind at peace. Nietzsche talked about the aesthetic man on the genealogy of morals. He basically says that they do not know why they are suffering, and this is the very crux of their problem. In this section of the book that I share with you, it talks about a being who gave up, if I remember correctly, who gave up religious merit. Some people try to give up everything in life because they feel trapped in their current status or apparatus of living, so they want to create a new version of themselves, which relates back to Nietzsche's Übermensch or Overman or higher man, in which one can achieve greatness and one can supersede their animalistic instincts and one can overcome themselves. Nietzsche remarked once, what is bad compared to what is good is that when one loses his instincts. So what I just said might be a contradiction. However, I don't view it as such. In chapter 3, called the Imperishable of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it said, King Janaka of Videha once performed a lavish sacrifice and distributed many gifts. Many wise men from Kuru and Panchala attended the ceremony in Jacana, wanting to know who was the wisest among them. So he drove 1,000 cows into a pen, and between the horns of each cow he fastened 10 gold coins. Then he said, Venerable Brahmins, these cows are for the wisest one among you. Let him take them away. None of the other Brahmins dared to speak, but Yajnavalkya said to the people Samajrava, Son, you can drive these cows home. Hero of seers, his people exclaimed joyfully, and he drove them home. The other Brahmins were furious. How was it presumptuous? They shouted, and Ashvala, the royal priest, asked Yajnavalkya, Do you really believe you are the wisest of those assembled here? Yajnavalkya replied, I salute the wisest, but I want those cows. Then Gargi, daughter of Vajkaknu, said, Venerable Brahmins, I shall ask Vajnavalkya only 2 questions. If he answers them well, no one here can defeat him in a spiritual debate. Ask Gargi, the sage replied. Gargi, Yajnavalkya as a warrior from Kashi or Vidya rises with bow and arrow to fell his opponent. I rise to fell with you with two questions, and then Gargi, Gargi, that which is above heaven and below earth, which is also between heaven and earth, which is the same to past, present, and future. And what is that woven, warp, and move? Tell me, Yajnavalkya. Yajnavalkya, that which is above earth and below earth, which is also between heaven and hell, which is the same thought, the past, present, and future, that is woven, warp, and move in space. My first question is answered well. Now for my second question. Ask Gargi. In what is space itself woven? Warp, and woof? Tell me. The sages call it Akshara, the imperishable. It is neither big nor small, neither long nor short, neither hot nor cold, neither bright nor dark, neither air nor space. It is without attachment, without taste, smell, or touch, without eyes, ears, tongue, mouth, breath, or mind, without movement, without limitation, without inside or outside. It consumes nothing, and nothing it consumes. In this Upanishad, there are several people who claim to be wise, and some of the other people alongside them don't believe that they are the wisest among them. One of them confesses that all he wants were the cows, because they were selling cows to whoever who either became or was the wisest. It is meant to show that one should not define who one is too early. I've often made that mistake because I defined myself early on as an existentialist, and now more Buddhist or with some Hindu notions such as reincarnation or the soul. Before I was an existentialist, I was a pessimist, and before that, I was a Christian, Catholic, primarily. Back to the Upanishad. In this one, it talks about the separation between knowledge and wisdom, which Carl Jung remarked, quote, we have become too rich in knowledge and poor. We have been rich with knowledge and poor in wisdom. I was a bit surprised when I first read this quote because I attributed knowledge towards wisdom. But one can know about all the presidents and all the history of the past, or one can know themselves and their goal in the future. Again, this is a great text. It was a great read to embark upon. Again, I am transitioning from existentialism towards Buddhism nowadays, so expect more either Hindu or Buddhist or Eastern philosophy texts along the future. As noted in my last review, I plan on doing a series of John Milton, the complete poems. I'm about halfway through, and the notes are for my review. I always tab everything out for future reference when I reread it again, because true reading is rereading. So if you're interested in Hindu philosophy or Indian philosophy or Eastern philosophy, this is a great read and I highly recommend it. Thank you for watching, and as always, good night.